What's going on, gang? Baltmatrix here, and today we are taking a look at Transformers The Last Knight, Voyager class, Nitro Zeus, and Scorn. Yes, I'm doing a combo review. Normally I would split these guys out into two different reviews, but I like both of them so much that I kind of want to show them together. They are vastly different figures. You can't get much more different than a Spinosaurus and a jet, but they're both awesome. So let's go ahead and take a look at the figures up close. Starting with Nitro Zeus, he only comes in this weird metallic gray and black, but he has minor gold highlights all over the figure. His mono eye is actually really cool, and we'll get into more about the head in a minute. He's got twin Gatling guns on the sides of his shoulders, very much like the Wing Gundam, or from Gundam Wing. And overall, the figure is really nifty looking, especially in robot mode. He does have a bit of a backpack. He's got these thrusters that do move forward, though the amount of force required to unpeg them is a little bit excessive. So they can move forward, but they flop right back. Overall, robot mode is really neat. There are a few little minor issues in robot mode. The shoulders do have a tendency to come unpegged a bit, and his arms are a little bit weird. On his left arm, he does have this cannon that can't come off because it's part of a transformation, and then on his right arm, he's got this giant shield slash bashing weapon slash axe that is just molded right onto his arm. Again, these are parts of the transformation. And his transformation is complex, but it actually reminds me of Beast Wars Sky Shadow. The Fusor. Yeah, weird, I know. We'll get into that in a little bit. Posability for Nitro is really good. I think the posability is awesome. Head is on a ball joint. Shoulders are on dual hinges, swivel at the upper arm, 90-degree bend at both elbows, no fist articulation, no torso articulation. Hips are two hinges. There is a thigh swivel, little over 90-degree bend at the knee, and there is forward and back ankle articulation, no side to side. And this figure could definitely benefit from side to side ankle articulation. You could get some really nifty poses off with this guy, and they all look really cool. My biggest complaint about this figure has to do with the head, and that's because his head just pops off. He can fit a Titan Master, which makes me think this mold was originally meant to be a headmaster. His head, or head sculpt, is excellent and really does kind of make me think of a jet version of Shockwave. Jeez. Titan Master is faceless. I mean, there's just a screaming hole where a face should be there. Head is pretty much hollow. You would think there's light piping, but there isn't, sadly. Any Titan Master works fine. I actually like Quake. I think the yellow face works really well with this mold. And like I said, any Titan Master works. I'm looking at all my Titan Masters now, and yeah, I think this one works the best. Now, the reason I actually don't like the head is because it just comes off way too easily. This head is not on here real tight. It wiggles and wobbles, and if you don't get it on there just right, it does have a tendency to fall off. Not the biggest deal in the world, but just something worth pointing out. Overall, though, robot mode is freaking awesome. Who else is freaking awesome? That would be Scorn. He's an absolutely beautiful figure. Modeled in red, silver, and charcoal, it's really nice. The robot mode is really nice. The overall aesthetic works incredibly well, and it actually looks like the Red Knight from The Last Knight. If you've seen the movie, there's like one colored knight, and he's red, and this makes me think of him. I really dig the look of this guy. Now, before we get into more good stuff, I do want to point out the negative. The thigh swivels here that are just above the knee are a little too loose for my taste, and the pins here at the feet are too loose. Both of those are completely fixable. You could totally fix those if your figure has that problem. What you can't fix, however, are the shoulders popping off. The shoulders have a tendency to just pop out of place. Not the biggest deal in the world again, just something to be aware of. Something I do want to point out is that his right arm is actually an arm, and there is a hand modeled and molded onto, well, what would be his fist. It's not the best fist in the world. It's only got a few, fingers, and the thumb doesn't really pose, and he really doesn't hold anything very well. I mean, you can get him to hold a gun, but he looks patentedly ridiculous, and sometimes it doesn't even want to wrap around the handle of the gun. So he does have a real hand this time. Now, his other arm is just his tail, and it is bendable in 3 places, or I should say flexible in 3 places, so you could get this cool whip-like action, like he's going back to whip somebody. That is very cool. It looks like the arm here is supposed to slide forward or back, but it does not. There is a single pin hinge. It works fine. There's nothing really wrong with it. Posability-wise, he's excellent. Head is on a ball joint, though it is limited. Shoulders are on a pair of a swivel and a hinge. There is articulation at the upper arm on both arms. Elbows bend at 90 degrees. Hand articulation in the right arm, tail articulation on the left. No torso articulation because of the transformation. There is a series of hinges and swivels for the thighs. The front skirts are posable. The side skirts are posable, even though they're, teeth. Thigh swivel, mentioned before. Over a 90-degree bend at the knee. And then some foot articulation, in and out, forward and back. The in and out articulation is very, very tight, but it can work just fine. Now, I'm terrible at posing figures, but I was actually able to get him to balance on one leg earlier in kind of a martial arts pose, so I was able to do that earlier. One thing worth noting about both figures, and it's really hard to see on Nitro Zeus here, they both have peg holes in their crotches, so you can get them on pegs and put them up flying in the air or whatever. So you can pose them with a Tamashii stand, just having a peg go right up their butts. Both figures have that, and I do actually greatly appreciate that. So let's go ahead and get into Nitro Zeus's transformation. We'll do Scorn right after it. To start off with, we're going to come to the left arm, fold the fist up into the forearm, take the cannon, and push that up into the forearm. Coming to the right arm, push these little, I guess you would call them sword bits, down until they snap. I kind of feel like they're supposed to slide up and snap into the area right here, which they can do right like that. They don't show that as, doing that in the directions. Then we take the outsides of the shield, fold them out and down, and then peg them into place to form the cockpit and the front nose cone of the jet mode. Now, I like to remove the head here just to get it out of the way, come to the backpack, and take off the missiles. I like to do that simply to get all of this stuff out of the way so we could get to the rest of the transformation. Next, we're going to come to the head section, reach inside behind where the head is, and flip it forward. Then grab the entire section, and Next, we'll grab the entire section where the head pegs into place. And you see that pin? What I do is I kind of just fold the whole thing back a little bit, get in there, and turn the head so that it is facing back. It is incredibly difficult to do this. That pin is exceptionally tight. So what I end up doing is taking the head, which you're supposed to turn 180 degrees, and push it forward while pulling the Gatling guns forward, and that will flip the head up. So it just flips this whole section up. The only way you can get that section to move or flip up like that is through leverage. Okay, now that was the easy part of the transformation. Now we're getting into the crazy stuff. Come to the feet, fold them straight down like that. Take the arms, flip these panels out all the way on the shoulders, and point the arms straight out to the sides. Take the legs and split them at the crotch like that. Next, come to the right leg where the number 1 is and follow the leg connectors all the way up to this screw right here on the side of the abdomen. Put your finger behind it and then flip the whole leg forward like that. See where that pin is? Just want to flip that forward above the abdomen. Then when we do that, we take the nose cone, point it to the back of the figure, unpeg the shoulder, unfold the shoulder, and bring the whole section down under the crotch. And then the plain nose cone will peg into these 2 pegs right back here. So like that. And that requires a bit of force, pegging that in. Then we can bring the shoulder pad in like this, and we can get it up underneath that pin, fold it back, turn the leg, and then we're going to leave the leg like that as it is. Next, come to the left shoulder, flip open the number 13 where the shoulder pad is, and then push the shoulder up and rotate it around and back around where the head is. And then get that gray piece over the little pin here. Turn the cannon so that the cannon peg is pointing up towards the rear thrusters, and then collapse this whole section onto the back. Now, when we do that, we can then take the legs, fold the legs up along the body, which you actually have to kind of grab, fold them down, and then flip them around first. And there are pins or pegs on the side of the cannon here on the forearm, and those will peg into the bottom of the feet right here. So we do that on the first one. And this is actually the hardest part of the transformation, is getting these pins in. And then turn this around and do it for the other leg while keeping the black sections straight. Now that actually looks pretty cool already, right? It kind of reminds you of, I don't know, Megatron from War Within Cybertron, or which one? The first game. Well, what we're actually going for is a jet, not a floating tank. So the biggest qualm I have with this figure is if you get one leg or one foot pegged in, it's virtually impossible to get the other foot pegged in correctly. So you just kind of have to deal with it. So the next thing we're going to do is kind of fold the, well, I guess the jets back or out a little bit. So we can come to the back here, fold the tail nose down, and peg it into place. Then, and this is probably the most interesting part, I like to fold one of the engines all the way into the body, then flip out the first wing, come to the jet engine here, and unpeg it from the inside. It's pegged in right there, and that allows you to fold the wing out all the way, and then flip up the jet engine, and it will peg into the bottom of the wing. And then take this little wing section and fold it out, and that little wing section right here that we just folded out will peg into the hip. Fold that down, peg it into the hip, peg it into the foot at the back of the wing, like so. And this is where you find out if you've got things lined up correctly. And I obviously do not, because things are not going correctly. So I have to futz with this a little bit to get it correctly aligned. And then we'll just kind of do the same thing on the other side. I like this jet mode a lot. It is super, super cool to see a movie-type figure turn into such a neat-looking jet. Now, I don't have it perfectly transformed because I think there are some things wrong with my specific figure. Actually, it just could be me. He's got a lot of Transformer junk under there, though, so be aware of that. This is the biggest issue I have with this figure, is things just, especially with the legs, don't want to line up correctly. Oh well, nothing I can really do other than just kind of leave it and let it go. The missiles will attach underneath the wings, though getting them pegged in has proven problematic in parts. But overall, I think the jet mode is cool. I would have preferred maybe a Cybertronian jet mode as opposed to what we have. I still think this is cool. One neat thing is that the canopy does open, though it is very difficult to get open if you don't have any nails. Ow. And it will fit a Titan Master with no problem whatsoever. So we can have a little Titan Master there in the cockpit. I still think this figure was meant to be a Headmaster. Next up is Scorn, and his transformation is very different from Nitro Zeus's, who is just called Nitro on the box for some reason. But it's very, very cool. So, to start off with, we are going to first take the arms and unpeg them from the shoulders, or unpeg the shoulders from the body, and then take the entire body, or entire chest, and turn it so that the tail is on the bottom, and the arms for the Dino mode are on the top. So you end up with this freaky walking form. Really weird. Then come to the back and grab the side spines and unpeg them from the center spine, like so. Oh, one thing I do need to mention is all of these spines are nice and dull, and the pointy ones are made of soft rubber, so you're not going to hurt yourself with this figure. If you do, I would be very impressed. Once that is unpegged, we can fold the back out and then flip out the dino head. When you get the dino head folded out correctly, one thing you do need to be careful of is these little bits on the bottom of his muzzle have a tendency to get caught, so just be aware of that. We then can take the robot head and flip it into the body. Then come to the arm section. You see this little wheel? What you need to do is actually move it and turn the entire arm on this wheel so that the peg hole lines up with that piece right there. And then fold this section up and peg it into place. And now we've ended up with the most disturbing Ultraman monster mode known to Ultraman. But we're not done with the figure yet. So grab the legs, split the legs apart, and fold them up. And then when you do that, you come down to the arm here, fold it down so that it pegs into that peg hole. So we just need to make sure that it's lined up correctly. I'm sorry, that peg. Fold it up, and then make sure that the pegs are in the right spot. So we want the pegs sticking out to peg into that hole, and then those pegs to peg into that hole. And this will latch the back of the dino mode together, like so. And then we turn the legs for the robot mode down, and turn that around 180. Then we come to the front, fold the arm of the robot mode down underneath the dino mode, and they will peg into the chest right there. And getting that lined up. And then we collapse the back onto the Spinosaurus mode, and it will peg into this peg hole right up front, like that. And then fold the back parts down, and they will peg into place. And finally, we come to the legs. Now, this is cool. First, push on the kneecap, and that will spin the foot. Put the foot all the way up, and then flip it all the way around until it stops. And then you can, if you want, just flip up the dino mouths, but you don't have to. You can leave them down. It's not that big a deal. Do the same thing on the other side. And here we have the Spinosaurus form for Scorn. The Spinosaurus's head is super cool. I do wish there was a little bit more detailing paint, but he does have eyes in there. They are very hard to see. And his mouth opens all the way, so he can nom on some Decepticreeps. Head posability is incredibly good and moves up, down, left, and right really well. Then his little arms in the front work incredibly well. The spines are fully posable, So you can pose them straight out, straight up, side to side, whatever you want. The legs work really well. I like the look of them. And then the tail is super cool with those 3 different points of articulation. I normally keep it out straight, but you can curve it up, do whatever you want. Overall, I think the Spinosaurus mode is absolutely fantastic. Getting it into this mode is a little bit tricky, and the directions aren't great, but you kind of have a feel of the way things should go. The one issue I have with the directions is, on my directions, it is next to impossible to see the little tiny gray discs that need to move. They don't even really show it in the directions, which is a shame, because if you don't spin those the correct way, you're not going to get to a good-looking dino mode. One other awesome thing about Nitro is that he has a little stand peg right into, well, his abdomen that you can use to have him pose in plane mode. Both of these figures are great. I love both of them equally. I think they are a lot of fun. They are both minorly flawed, though, and I did describe the flaws earlier in the video review. But I can look past them, because even though they are annoying, they're definitely not deal breakers. Both of these figures are strong candidates for Figure of the Year for me. They are that good, and I like them that much. I definitely think you guys should pick them up. If I had to pick a favorite, though, I think Scorn just edges out Nitro Zeus. The reason is because it feels just neater to me, if that makes any sense. I like the transformation more. I like the alt mode a lot more, and it's more fun for me. But if I had to pick a winner for best robot mode, Nitro Zeus hands down. I think it has an excellent robot mode. Scorn is by no means second bananas or anything, but I like Nitro Zeus's robot mode more. Both of these figures, I don't think you can go wrong with. If you can pick them up, definitely do so. I got both of these figures over at thechosenprime.com. They are also available at bigbadtoystore.com. So gang, I hope you've enjoyed the video review of these 2 excellent figures. Please, buy them, especially if you can find them. As always, I am Baltmatrix, asking you to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a great day.